Welcome to another deep dive. If you're into STEM, like I know you are, today's topic is right up your alley. We're going to be talking about algorithmic layout techniques.
Sounds complicated.
It's not as bad as it sounds, really. It's all about using rules and parameters to create visual arrangements, kind of like coding aesthetics, you know?
Oh, okay, I see. So, like, instead of manually placing everything, you're telling the computer how to arrange things.
Yeah.
Makes things a lot easier, I bet.
Exactly. And our main source today is Hayden Pickering's blog. He's got some really interesting and sometimes pretty strong opinions about all this.
Always good to have someone who's not afraid to speak their mind. What kind of stuff does he talk about?
Well, he gets into this whole problem of incomplete grids, which he compares to Tetris.
Tetris is like the game.
Yeah, exactly. You know how sometimes you end up with those gaps in the last row because the blocks don't fit perfectly?
Oh, yeah, I hate when that happens.
Oh, it's the same issue when the number of items in a grid layout doesn't divide evenly into the columns. You end up with those weird visual gaps.
Ah, I see. So how do you fix that?
Well, Pickering offers this really clever solution using CSS nth-child selectors.
CSS? I thought that was just for making things look pretty.
There's a lot more to CSS than meets the eye. Pickering actually calls it a new kind of JavaScript.
A new kind of JavaScript? I don't get it.
His point is that CSS can be really dynamic and reactive, just like JavaScript. For example, you can use it to style elements differently based on their attributes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So instead of using complex template logic or JavaScript to manipulate the layout, you can just use a few lines of CSS to target those specific elements that are causing the gaps.
Elegant and efficient.
Exactly. It's all about finding those elegant and efficient solutions. Now, Pickering also talks a lot about the importance of semantic HTML.
Semantic HTML, what's that?
It's basically using HTML elements that not only describe the appearance of the content, but also convey meaning and structure.
So it's about more than just looks.
Right. Pickering uses this great analogy. He compares HTML elements to boat anchors.
Boat anchors. I'm intrigued.
So a boat anchor needs to be attached to something to actually be useful.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just sinks to the bottom.
Exactly. And it's the same with semantic HTML. The elements need to have proper attributes to actually convey meaning. And that's where ARIA label comes in.
ARIA label. Never heard of it.
It's basically a way to provide labels for screen readers when the visual label might not be clear. So it helps make websites more accessible to people who are visually impaired.
Oh, that's really important.
It is, but Pickering brings up a challenge here. It turns out that automatic translation services sometimes have trouble with ARIA label.
So if you're building a website in multiple languages,
It can create accessibility issues. Pickering's not a big fan of the workaround using JavaScript, though he admits it does give you more control. It's a tough balance.
definitely sounds like it. Speaking of tough balances, what about these utility-first CSS frameworks everyone's talking about, like Tailwind, I think it's called?
Oh yeah, Pickering's got some thoughts on that too. He actually calls it a paradigm chart.
Wow, okay. Strong words. But I get it, sometimes those shortcuts come back to bite you.
Exactly. He's all for convenience, but his point is that utility-first CSS can lead to bloated code that's hard to manage, especially on big projects. He's a much bigger fan of the more structured, semantic approach to CSS, where everything has a meaning and is nice and organized.
Makes a lot of sense. Easier for everyone to understand down the line, especially if you're working on a team.
Right, and he actually compares it to writing.
Yeah.
You want your code to be like clear, well-written prose where it's easy to understand and follow.
Makes you think about the long game. So are you saying we should avoid utility-first CSS altogether?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It has its place. It's all about using the right tool for the job and thinking about the long-term implications of your choices. Pickering's big on that, by the way.
Yeah.
Thinking about how our designs can be better for everyone, not just in terms of looks, but also accessibility.
I like that. Inclusive design. Who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. He's got this great story about how he is advising on a project, and they were going for this super minimalist design for input fields.
Minimalist. Like, how minimalist are we talking?
Instead of having a traditional box for the input field, it was just a simple line.
Yeah, I can see how that could cause problems.
Well, he pointed out that this could be a problem for screen reader users who rely on visual cues to identify and interact with forms. He suggested they stick with the box, make it clear what it is.
So did they listen?
They didn't at the time, but guess what? Months later, the company came back and admitted that the design was causing accessibility issues. It just goes to show, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
And that listening to experts pays off. What else does Pickering talk about?
He gets into this idea of design trends being a bit like artificial selection.
Artificial selection, like breeding dogs or something.
Sort of. His point is that big companies with tons of users can afford to experiment with different designs and see what sticks, even if some of those designs aren't great for everyone. Smaller organizations might not have that luxury.
Makes you think about who has the power to shape the digital landscape and who gets left out in the process.
Right. And Pickering also talks a lot about the ethical dilemmas that developers face. He describes it as turning into burning shit.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah, he's talking about that struggle of balancing what the client wants with what you believe is right, especially when you're asked to build things that could be harmful or misleading.
Like dark patterns, those tricky designs meant to trick people into doing stuff they don't want to do.
Exactly. And he doesn't offer any easy answers, but he encourages developers to really think about those ethical implications and advocate for their users. It's a reminder that building technology is about more than just writing code. It's about shaping the digital world we live in.
And hopefully making it a better place.
Exactly. And speaking of making things better, Pickering has some interesting thoughts on how to manage focus for screen reader users. He uses the analogy of a wasp's nest.
A wasp's nest. Okay, this should be good. What's he getting at?
Well, even seemingly simple interactions can get really complicated when you're trying to make things accessible for everyone. He specifically talks about challenges with using the ARIA controls attribute.
ARIA controls.
Yeah, it's meant to manage the relationships between different elements like buttons and the content they control. But apparently support for this attribute can be a bit inconsistent across different screen readers.
Ah, I see. So it's not a magic bullet solution.
Nope. You really have to test things thoroughly to make sure the focus management is working as intended for all users. Especially because a lot of websites these days are so dynamic, the content can change all the time.
And it sounds like he's suggesting our current tools and techniques may not be quite up to the task. We need new ways to think about accessibility in these complex, dynamic environments.
And speaking of adapting, Pickering also reminisces about the evolution of web typography.
Web typography, you mean fonts.
Exactly. He talks about how web fonts have completely changed the game. Back in the old days, achieving custom typography was a nightmare. People were doing all sorts of crazy things like misusing HTML tables or even embedding entire designs as images just to get the fonts they wanted.
That sounds messy and probably not very good for performance.
Exactly. But now, with web fonts, we can use all sorts of beautiful custom typefaces while keeping our HTML clean and semantic. But of course, Pickering has some words of caution about using them responsibly.
Like what?
Well, large font files can really impact website performance, so he encourages designers to be mindful of file sizes and loading times when choosing typefaces.
It's that classic trade-off between aesthetics and functionality. We want things to look good, but also work smoothly.
And speaking of looking good and working smoothly, this brings up a really interesting question. How can we apply these principles of algorithmic layout to other areas beyond just visual design?
That's a great question, and I think it's particularly relevant to someone with your background in STEM. If we think about it, algorithmic layout isn't just about arranging things on a screen. It's really about using computational thinking to organize information, automate tasks, and even understand complex systems. It's like taking the visual and applying it to a much wider range of problems.
Exactly. And it connects to the work you do in STEM too, right? Imagine algorithmic layout in data visualization, presenting complex data, visually appealing but easy to understand.
Absolutely. Like in those recommendation systems, algorithms suggest content based on your behavior, organizing information in a personalized way.
And it goes beyond digital too. Imagine optimizing traffic flow in cities, managing resources in manufacturing even, arranging things, pixels or cars. It's all about efficiency and elegance.
So many applications. Computational thinking is changing how we approach problems in the 21st century.
It's exciting, taking design principles and expanding them.
It is. And Pickering's work, although about web dev, offers a starting point. He makes us think about design in a holistic, algorithmic way.
Pickering's blog is full of these insightful things that make you question assumptions, like clear labels for interactive elements, he talks about.
He has an anecdote. A team went for a minimalist design, just a line for input fields.
Instead of the usual box.
Yeah. He pointed out that screen reader users need those visual cues to use forms properly.
He suggested the box, clear for everyone.
Such a small detail, big impact on usability.
Absolutely. It's about thinking about accessibility from the start, not as an afterthought.
Not just guidelines, understanding principles for an inclusive experience.
It makes a good point about testing with different screen readers, too.
Can't just assume something's accessible because it looks that way to you.
Right. Different screen readers interpret things differently. Thorough testing is important.
Shows the need for someone on the team who's knowledgeable about accessibility.
Speaking of best practices, Pickering has strong opinions about accessibility overlays.
Those quick fix things.
He's not a fan. Compares them to a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Superficial fix. Not addressing the real issue.
Covering up the problem. He says true accessibility needs a mindset shift, integrated from day one.
Relying on overlays might actually create more barriers for users.
No shortcuts to true accessibility. He also talks about the ethical dilemmas for developers.
Client demands clashing with personal values.
Yes, he talks about implementing features that might be harmful. He calls it turning into burning shit.
That bad, huh?
It's that inner conflict. He encourages developers to think ethically, advocate for users.
We have a responsibility. Building tech is more than code. It's shaping our world.
Speaking of responsibility, Pickering also talks about using web fonts responsibly.
Back in the day, it was a real challenge to have custom fonts.
They used to misuse HTML tables, even embed designs as images.
Messy and slow, I bet.
Exactly. Web fonts are much better, but Pickering cautions against going overboard.
Because large files slow things down.
He points out that slow loading times can lead to a frustrating experience for users.
Especially with slower internet.
It's balancing aesthetics and performance, making sure it works well for everyone.
Thinking holistically. Considering the impact on all users.
Pickering challenges us to think about the bigger picture. He pushes boundaries.
His work is valuable. He inspires us to be better, think critically about our tools.
To create tech that's both beautiful and ethical. And speaking of taking things further, remember the idea of algorithmic layout beyond visual design.
That's where it gets really interesting, especially for your background.
Taking those principles, efficiency, elegance, and structure to wider problems.
It's happening everywhere, even if we don't realize it.
Like data visualization. Algorithms present information clearly.
Or recommendation systems, helping us navigate all that online information.
It's computational thinking. Organizing information, making decisions, and solving problems. And it's getting more important as data grows.
Like in AI, machine learning, and robotics.
Algorithms are making systems intelligent, efficient, and responsive.
Thanks to those algorithmic layout principles.
A great example of how niche ideas can influence other fields.
It shows how connected different fields are, abstracting those core concepts. Who knew arranging things on a web page could influence intelligent systems?
It's those principles of balance, hierarchy, flow, but applying them to so much more. Exciting times for STEM.
Absolutely. Pickering's work, while about the web, shows what's possible with algorithmic design thinking.
So to wrap up, we've explored these algorithmic layout techniques with Hayden Pickering as our guide.
We've seen the shift from manual layouts to these elegant algorithms, talked about everything from CSS to ethics and web development.
What's fascinating is how those techniques go beyond just pixels.
They change how we think about organizing information, automation, even designing complex systems.
As you continue in STEM, think about how to apply this to your own challenges.
Visualizing data, optimizing processes, building intelligent systems. The ideas we discuss can spark something new.
Algorithms are full of possibilities. Can't wait to see what you discover.